Welcome back to the WAAR Room, my beautiful people and fight fans from all around the world. I am your fight goddess, Chris Baldwin, and I am here with my boy, the conscious of combat sports, Mr. Eddie Goldman, and my sister in the boxing family, Malissa Smith. She is a women's boxing historian, and today we are going to give you an update on the mess that is Olympic boxing right now and the IBA. And Eddie broke it down in his, he's always clear and concise in his articles, which I love, Eddie, on Patreon. So let's talk a little bit about where we are right now, because the IBA might be wiped off the map forever. They may not come back, but right now they're really trying to pull it together so that they can get boxing back on the program, which it looks like it may not be on the program for 2028 at the Los Angeles Games. So Eddie, break this down for us. Tell us where we are right now and what you think is going to look like come 2024 or 2028.
Well, it's a huge mess. It's a huge sinkhole, and they're slipping deeper and deeper into it. And 2024, the boxing will be organized directly by the IOC task force, which does not include IBA. In 2028 in Los Angeles, it's not even on the preliminary program. They're adding other sports like skateboarding, which has its own scandal. If you look that up, another scandalous sport. And there are more and more divisions, and there are people within IBA trying to reform it who are being resisted and opposed by the leadership. And the latest battle came over something that you would think might be a kind of routine matter about where to have their next Congress, which is going to be on September 25th. The reason they have to have a second Congress this year is because earlier this year they had what was supposed to be their regular Congress, and they voted for president and the board of directors. And the day before, in Putin style, the opposition candidate, Boris van der Vorst, was excluded on some ridiculous technicalities, along with five of himself and some associates running for the board of directors. They appealed to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, who said that at most they should have been given a light sanction for campaigning outside of the time allotted and things like that, and that Umar Kremlev, the president of IBA, had done the same thing. But whatever should have been done, that was not something that should have led to their being disqualified for the election. So they didn't even order new elections, but Kremlev said, okay, we'll have another one for president, but they haven't scheduled another one for board of directors. So they said they opened bidding for the second Congress this year, and they chose Armenia. And Kremlev issued a statement saying that one of the key reasons for this was that, quote, Armenia showed their great organizational skills during the EUBC, that's the European Boxing Confederation, Elite Men's Championships in May this year. Well, this was opposed by the Common Cause Alliance, and a letter that was signed by representatives of 15 national boxing federations, including some of the strongest in the world, opposed this. And this is the US, the Philippines, Finland, Australia, Iceland, Czechia, Switzerland, New Zealand, France, Canada, Denmark, England, Sweden, Ireland, and the Netherlands. And they wanted the Congress to be held in Lausanne, Switzerland, where the IOC has its headquarters, and most of the international federations have the headquarters. But it was even more than that. They specifically objected to holding it in Armenia. And I'm just going to read this, what they claimed as the first of their two main reasons. Quote, McLaren Independent Investigation Team is currently conducting an investigation into the disturbing events that took place at the 2022 EUBC Men's Elite European Boxing Championships in Yerevan, including allegations of corruption, unauthorized intrusions into the field of play, and the subsequent interventions of the EU-BC board in matters of on-site management of competition officials. Now this is the event that I just read the quote that Kremlin said was so wonderful. And the Common Cause Alliance statement continues, the president of the Armenian Boxing Federation is a subject of this investigation as a member of the EU-BC Board of Directors. Representatives of the Armenian team were among those breaching the field of play without an authorization, which led to numerous disruptions of the competition, as well as prompting serious security concerns, unquote. Now, this investigation is going on, as they say, and all these right now are allegations. Why the hell, of all the countries out there, do you pick this country to hold your Congress where there have been serious security concerns over just a boxing tournament, a continental boxing tournament that took place? The second reason was more political and involved Armenia's ties to Putin's and Kremlin's Russia. And they wrote, quote, the Armenian government is a close military and political ally of the Russian government, which is currently conducting an illegal military invasion of Ukraine. The Russian military is currently stationed in Armenia, including the Russian 102nd military base in Gyumri, probably mispronouncing that, and the Russian 3,624th Air Base in Urumqi Airport near Yerevan. Yerevan, by the way, is the capital of Armenia. The cooperation between the Armenian and Russian governments is organized under the Collective Security Treaty Organization, unquote. So this is where they chose to hold their Congress, in a country that's basically a military ally and in some ways militarily dependent after Azerbaijan's Armenia's war with Azerbaijan earlier this year, which Russia intervened, and basically on the side of Armenia. So it's no surprise that this is where Kremlin is putting them. So all these quotes were from a public letter that was issued on July 25th from the Common Cause Alliance to the IBA board that was made available to us. And this is a public, and I asked about this. This is a public letter. Go ahead and post it. I don't know how many places have posted it. Has all this information on it. And right now, leading up to this Congress, not surprisingly, Kremlin is traveling all over, particularly the Middle East and Africa, presumably gathering up votes and setting up boxing academies and tournaments, and looks like he's thrown a lot of money around to different organizations. Because if you look at the 15 countries that signed this, you did not see countries from the Middle East or from Africa on there, many of which are very smaller federations, and particularly in Africa have very, very limited or scant resources. So there's a lot of trickeration going on, and the IOC, to use Thomas Bach's strange phrase, is not amused by all of this. And another investigation into this 2022 tournament in Armenia, all of this under Kremlin's leadership, is certainly not going to help it. And so what the question also in terms of their funding, we've discussed a lot how they're right now dependent on money from Gazprom, the Russian state-controlled energy giant, but that's going to run out at the end of the year. And so who's going to support them? And they're just little hints. Kremlin was in Kuwait, and he opened up a Kuwaiti boxing academy and had a tournament there. They've been very active in getting involved in the Olympic movement, although with their own series of scandals. We see the money that Saudi Arabia is putting into professional boxing. You know, I don't have specific information on this, But if I had to guess, that's what he's trying to get some support from one or another of these oil-rich Middle Eastern monarchies. Qatar, for example, is hosting the World Cup starting in November, probably the biggest tournament in the world for football. So they're in a total mess, and it doesn't seem to be getting better. I expect the Congress to sort of rubber stamp Kremlin when he runs. Van der Waals is expected to run against him, and there's no new schedule for an election for the board of directors. So all this stuff, all this trickeration, this is like Putin-style elections, disqualify your opponents, arrest your opponents, all this kind of stuff, and it just doesn't fly. So
I do have a question for you, Eddie.
Sure.
The men's competition in Armenia was also the first time that there was real prize money given to the winning fighters. Has there been any indication of corruption on that side as well?
They may just be giving out money. Look, I don't have access to their books, but where is their income coming from? Do they have TV rights? Do they sell a large amount of tickets, like a lot of these big professional fights? Do they sell merchandise? It seems that they're just a trickle coming in. So how are they giving out this money? It looks like they're just giving out the money that they got from Gazprom to the fighters. It's something that's unsustainable, and that's one of the things even the IOC, which is good at bankrupting countries or cities that host this Summer Olympics anyway, has said this doesn't work. Your finances just don't work. It's too messed up even for the IOC, which is quite an accomplishment.
Right. What happens if the IOC decides there will be no more boxing? What happens to the IBA at that point?
The IBA may continue to exist, but in most countries, I think the US is different, but in most countries, the funding for the National Olympic Federations in various sports comes from the government in addition to sponsors. And they'll work directly with the Ministry of Sport. We don't have anything like that in the United States, where it's much more privatized, so there'll be some government money.
And IBA had existed prior to the Olympics. I mean, IBA has always been in the Olympics. I mean, that's because they handle the elite fighting internationally.
I think boxing was earlier than it was when it was AIBA. I think.
Yeah, exactly. When it was AIBA, they were managing that, but they were also managing all the elite international competitions, which are held in the alternate years when the Olympics isn't held. So presumably IBA or some successor organization continues. Otherwise, not only will the Olympic movement for boxing collapse, but just international competition will also collapse, which will be catastrophic to the sport, especially for women, because they have had extraordinary opportunity to come and rise through the amateurs and national programs and then compete internationally. And it's had an enormous impact on the growth of the sport and on funding availability within the home countries of where these competitors come from. Right. There's also, IBA also manages all of the JO, Junior Olympic competitions, which are international, which, the United States has had some real success. And while there are games like, the Pan American Games or the Commonwealth Games for Commonwealth countries, European nationals, a lot of that filters through IBA at some level, or its prior iteration, AIBA. And with that organization in place, as I said, it really will become very difficult for men and women to compete at all levels, but in particular, it will affect women in their own national programs, because
that funnel dries up, right?
That funnel dries up, and if you use the United States as a case, women who are elite female fighters who compete internationally, who hold national titles, they're supported by USA Boxing. They have a place to live in Colorado at the Olympic Center. they're sponsored in their competitions. You know, Christina Cruz, as an example, only chose to become professional in the last year because she lost out on her last opportunity to compete in the Olympics. She had maintained her amateur status because she was winning national titles. Why? Because the money was sure. You know, she had a place to live, she had opportunities to compete, and to compete at a high level. So if that goes away, that'll have a really, really detrimental effect on women in particular, because there will be nowhere else for them to go. And they're like going to end up being forced into a professional world, which has zero respect without Olympic gold behind you, you know.
I expect that if IBA tanks and boxing is off the program in 2028, that somebody is going to try to come along to fill that vacuum somewhere, again, between the Middle Eastern monarchies. Also, the professional sanctioning bodies like WBC and WBA have in the past expressed an interest in amateur boxing. Vladimir Klitschko also did, although, of course, you know, with the war in Ukraine, you know, he's focused on that, defending his country against Russia. So I just expect something is going to try to fill that void. Whether or not they're successful, I don't know. But I just don't see the way that IBA gets out of this if Kremlev is reelected, especially by a huge margin on September 25th.
Right. So we are, speaking of the war in Ukraine, we are 8 days away from this Joshua and Usyk fight. And I've seen no press. I've seen no promos on DAZN. So what the hell is going on with this fight?
Who knows?
Who knows?
The shadow, nobody knows.
Yeah.
Look, the Saudis got the TV rights for this, Skill Challenge Entertainment. And they did sell it for the UK and Ireland to Sky Sports box office, which jacked up the price there, the pay-per-view, to £26.95, up from $24.95 for the last Joshua fight, and up from $19.95 from just a year or two, or whatever it was, a couple of years ago. And the only other country that we definitely know, and we're recording this 8 days before the fight, is Ukraine, where it was reportedly gifted to Usyk to show that fight for free in Ukraine on his YouTube channel and the local channels there. There were media reports that DAZN was going to get it for the rest of the world. That may still happen. However, we are 8 days away, and it is not official that they've signed any deal with DAZN. So we don't know for sure. Even if it is on a DAZN pay-per-view, they've done no promotional material for it. We don't know the price. We don't know the time in the United States because of the time difference. People want to see them. There are some other good fights on the card, but the main event between Usyk and Joshua will start at 4 or 5 or 6 p.m. Eastern. That's Saturday, August 20th. Who knows? That's what people are going to want to primarily tune in for if they get this. None of this is known and none of this is promoted. Usually in a major fight like this, the way they do it is that the week before fight week, they hold media conference calls or Zoom calls. And then on fight week, they announce the whole schedule with, you know, a lot of hype stuff. But just to get the word out there, the grand arrivals, the main event press conference, the undercard press conference, etc. This is standard operating procedure just to get the headlines. None of this has been announced. Now, the UK press, since it's on Sky Sports, has had a lot of articles that you can read about this. How valuable and accurate they are is another issue. But outside of that, you haven't had that. And there's so much misinformation out there for example, on BoxRec, lists the wrong venue. As of now, it lists the Jeddah Superdome, which people speculated that's where the fight would be before it was officially announced, which is a big domed building where WWE had a card early this year, and there are conferences and a lot of different stuff goes on.
And
yet it's not there.
How many people in that dome can that dome fit?
Well, that can probably fit 40-some thousand, but it's not there. It's not in Yankee Stadium. It's not in Wembley. It's in the King Abdullah Sports City Sports Hall, which, according to what I read, holds about 10,000 seats. If the press release by Matchroom calls it the King Abdullah Sports City Arena, but if you click, and then it gives you a link if you want to buy tickets, it'll say it's the Sports Hall. So they don't have that right. Originally, BoxRec was saying that it's unsanctioned. Now they're saying the Dubai Boxing Commission is sanctioning this, whatever that is. We don't know at this point the officials for the main event. A lot of that stuff is announced during the week anyway. Even some of the things on the card are kind of unclear. There are a lot of people like who the opponents will be for Andrew Tabiti and other fighters is unclear. The Ramla Ali, Crystal Garcia Nova fight, BoxRec has it listed as 10. Well, they don't even say how many rounds it is. And we don't even have the exact weight for what that's going to be. And that's also significant because it'll be the first women's pro fight in Saudi Arabia, where they have been developing the women's amateur program. In December, they had an amateur card, a tournament there. They brought in women fighters from both Saudi Arabia and other countries. And I've written about that a lot on my Patreon. But are they going to let the two women fighters wear the standard stuff that women boxers wear, or are they going to have to cover up their whole body like when the WWE had some of their women performers on their show, as opposed to the regular WWE, where a lot of the women are half naked anyway. The boxers aren't going to be half naked, but we know what women boxers look like on these regular cards. That's not clear, and that's an issue for an extremely conservative theocracy and monarchy like Saudi Arabia. So all this stuff is unclear. But like I said, they may announce something at the last minute that it's on DAZN, but this is not being professionally done in terms of the telecasting. And they insisted on having the rights, and this is agreed to by Eddie Hearn in Matchroom and Alex Krasiuk in K2. So, okay, you give us all this money for the fight, you get the broadcasting rights. And other than for Sky Sports box office, they're screwing the whole thing up. So if they don't want to promote it, if they don't want to really hype it too much outside of the UK and Ireland and Ukraine and Saudi Arabia, I mean, I just don't see the urgency to go crazy. And it should be, because there are a whole bunch of important heavyweight fights coming up among top 10 fighters after the September 4th. You got Andy Ruiz returning against Luis Ortiz. And later in September, you got Joe Joyce, Joseph Parker. All of these are arguably top 10 heavyweight fighters that are going on. And now everyday Tyson Fury is something different. The latest is he's retired and he's not retired, whatever. But the heavyweights are obviously always in the news in boxing. And you have a big stretch of major heavyweight fights. And this one, they're not doing it professionally. There's another heavyweight, Philippe Hergovich, in an IBF eliminator with Zhang Jilei, the big fighter from China. I expect Hergovich to knock him out, and that can make Hergovich the IBF mandatory. There are a lot of important things, but who knows about this stuff? So
it's also unfair to Callum Smith, who is making a comeback at light heavyweight, trying to make a statement, and there's been nothing on his fight either. And so I don't understand why this is happening. I mean, some outlets are saying, yeah, DAZN has the non-UK rights, but as you say, Eddie, it's nowhere to be seen as to how they're going to do it, whether it'll be shown in the United States on DAZN, whether it's going to be part of their pay-per-view, or whether they're just going to let it on for free. Given it's Saudi Arabia and the size of the card, are they going to have the undercard at all? Is that going to start at 10 in the morning in the United States in the, Eastern time? Hard to know.
That is crazy.
Yeah, it's not been officially announced. And I've made it, my business to get official announcements and press releases from all these different organizations that are out there. And so as we record on Friday, 8 days before the fight, nothing. Nada. Bupkis.
Yeah, so, just unsubstantiated reports in the UK press. That's it.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see what happens, folks. That's all I know.
And if it's not whatever, one way or another, you'd be able to. I'm sure there are other ways to find the pay-per-view.
Of course there is. Just go to Twitter. Somebody's going to be streaming it live.
No.
On boxing Twitter.
Or Instagram or something, or Facebook.
Exactly.
We'll find it.
I watched the whole fight backwards. The guy was filming it.
Yeah, I've done that.
I was like, at least I saw it for free. All right. So, folks, I think that's about it. You guys got anything else you want to touch base on before we wrap this show up for today? No? Wait. Melissa, let's just talk about that Claressa Shields fight.
Well, I mean, coming up. Just quickly, and I will do a bigger show on it. Saturday, September 10th at the O2 Arena in London, the United Kingdom, there will be a historic all-female card. At the top of the card is Claressa Shields versus Savannah Marshall for all the marbles. We're at world middleweight, title of undisputed queen for the IBF, WBA, WBC, WBF, and WBO. So there's even a little extra belt in there. The co-main is between Michaela Mayer and Alicia Baumgardner, who are both American fighters who have really had a rivalry going. And that's
going to be a bang up right there.
That is going to be a bang up. That's for the unification, IBF, IBO, WBC, WBO. There's still one belt Michaela out there.
Let's go.
Yeah, with Choi, we'll see what happens with her belt. And then what's amazing is this week, the rest of the card was announced. As I said, it's all female. It's like eight or so fights on the card, which is quite amazing.
Eight bouts?
Yeah, wow. 8 bouts. 10 bouts.
Wow.
It'll be 10 bouts. Nice. In the United States, it'll be shown on ESPN, USA, ESPN Plus. Plus.
This price
of course,
is
it's during the day, so it's plus streaming. And in the UK, it'll be on Sky because it's Boxer Sky. The undercard is, to my mind, a little underwhelming.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do in the boxing game.
Got to do what you got to do. It's mostly British fighters. There's one. The only other fighter at a top rank is Ginny Fuchs, who is a former teammate of both Claressa Shields and Michaela Mayer for the 2016 Olympic team. They're all 3 of them are Olympians, so it's kind of cool. I mean, there's a lot of Olympians on here. Then you got Caroline Dubois is sort of, she's 3-0. She's being touted as the next it. We'll see how she does. You've got fighters like Ebony Jones, Sharon Ryan, who are they're new to the game. They only have 3 fights under their belts, but they're known in England, in the UK for their abilities. And that's about it. The rest of these fighters, as I said, kind of underwhelming. A 4-0 fighter, 5-0 fighter.
At least they're making the effort. They're
making the effort to have an all-female card.
Right.
A lot of the B side are people like Beck Connolly, who is 3-15 right now. She'll be fighting Sarah Legman. And then there's some fighters out of Mexico and alternative places, not UK, let's put it that way, from Eastern Europe or South America, as opponents with, some with some interesting losing records. But
all right, that's
the
how
main
it
thing
is.
It's all women, so that is all good, and we'll get more into it a little closer to the fights.
Right on. We'll do a women's boxing show in a couple weeks. In the meantime, Eddie, tell the people where they can find you, my brother.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter a lot at NHB News, and there are a couple of stories I want people to follow if they get an idea of how some of these oil-rich monarchies are getting in and running their events, screwing it up. There's a big article in the New York Times, World Cup worries mount with 100 days to go, and how they change the schedule at the last minute, and it's screwing up all the advertising and the marketing, and that's just for November, and putting the World Cup in Qatar. Also, the IBA recently, Kovacs, the IBA Secretary General, resigned. So IBA needs a new Secretary General, and they put up an application on LinkedIn. Advertising.
Let's go fill it out.
Yeah, so if you want to go fill it out, you can go dig it out on LinkedIn. And there have also been articles in the Irish media about the crisis in Irish amateur boxing. The Irish Athletic Boxing Association has a big crisis among its leadership, and there's a big crisis within the Ukrainian Amateur Boxing Federation too. So this whole thing is a big mess, and we'll see if there are any boxing-related documents that the FBI found in all the top secret stuff that Trump stole and kept in his hole where he lives in Florida. But it'll be interesting to see if there's any boxing or combat sports related stuff there that ended up there. So you can find me, as I said, on Twitter at NHB News. A lot of this stuff I have on Patreon, patreon.com/Eddie Goldman, and my website, eddiegoldman.com. So I'm on Twitter a lot, more political stuff, dealing a lot with our president, Dark Brandon, who is just slaying the fascists one at a time with all these new pieces of legislation they got passed. So you can look about the whole debate about that, and maybe we'll time to dust off the Trump is going to jail party hats pretty soon.
Hell yeah, I can't wait. We're gonna have a war room party when his ass gets locked up. I can't wait. All right, Melissa.
Lock him up.
All right,
hey,
Melissa.
So I'm at Girl Boxing now on Twitter and on Instagram. My website is girlboxing.org, and I'm the author of The History of Women's Boxing. You can find it on Amazon. And, I'm very active online, and some political stuff, a lot of women's boxing, and I live tweet fights when I can.
Right on. And folks, you guys can find me on Instagram at Fight Goddess Fitness. I'm on Twitter at Angry Afro Radio, because I am that Black angry woman. And this is Sports Justice Radio. And you guys need to support independent journalism, because my people over here, they work hard. Eddie is an award-winning sports writer. Melissa is a boxing historian. And look, why bring you guys the experts? Because I'm just a fight fan. And then you guys, we have to talk about important stuff like sports governance, because we're talking about the next generation of combat sports and fighters. You guys need to protect yourself at all times, as we say in the business. Until then, next week, we'll see you later. Peace, love, and push-ups, people.